He couldn't walk. He couldn't bathe himself. He couldn't even hold a fork some days. And I was supposed to be the one helping him recover, the one staying strong, holding it all together. But while he was in the bedroom fighting to stand again, I was in the kitchen, letting another man touch me in a way my husband couldn't. I told myself it didn't mean anything, that it was survival, not betrayal. But the day he fell, alone, and asked me, "Where were you?" I realized I had no answer that wasn't a lie. This is my confession, not because I'm proud of it, but because it's the only way I can finally say what I did, out loud. I opened the door wearing the same sweatshirt I'd slept in, no bra, coffee in hand, hair in a knot that had started out neat 4 days earlier and unraveled with each hour I spent in this house. He smiled anyway. "Hi, Tyler, from Cascade Rehab," he said, setting down a black duffel bag and offering his hand. "Here for Adam." It took me a second to remember how to smile back. Adam was in the bedroom, still pretending to sleep when I left him that morning. Pretending because I knew he'd been awake since 5 a.m. The mattress creaked every time he adjusted his leg brace. He'd sigh loud enough for me to hear from the kitchen, but not loud enough for it to count as a call for help. We were locked in a dance of distance and duty. He was broken, and I was breaking. "Come in," I said, stepping back. Tyler walked in like someone who knew how to be quiet in other people's homes. He was maybe 34, clean-shaven, casual but sharp, like he still went on runs before work and made actual grocery lists. His voice was soft but not weak. I noticed that immediately. He greeted Adam with a practiced kindness. Didn't speak down to him. Didn't push. Just offered help, and waited for Adam to decide whether or not he was going to accept it. That, strangely, earned him more trust than anything I'd tried in months. They spent about 40 minutes in the bedroom. I stayed in the kitchen, sipping coffee I didn't want, scrolling through emails I didn't care about. The walls in our house were thin. I could hear everything. Adam cursing under his breath. Tyler correcting posture, coaching breath. His voice never raised. At some point, Tyler laughed. Not loudly. Just a soft, real laugh. And I realized I hadn't heard that sound in this house since the accident. When they were done, Tyler stepped into the kitchen while Adam rested. He opened the fridge without asking. Not rudely, but like someone used to being told yes. "You drink all the coffee?" he asked with a grin. "I can make more," I said. He nodded. I wouldn't say no. That was our first real interaction, pouring coffee. Just standing near the sink in a house that no longer smelled like life. He didn't say anything flirtatious. He didn't even really look at me, not in that way. But he was present, not just in the room, with me. I asked how long the therapy would last. He said maybe 6 weeks, maybe longer, depending on Adam's progress. "Will it help?" He looked at me. "If he wants it to." I didn't say what I was thinking, that Adam didn't seem to want anything anymore. Not help. Not conversation. Not me. Before he left, Tyler glanced around the kitchen. "This place could use some sunlight," he said, half to himself. "We used to open the blinds," I said. He nodded. "You should again. It's a nice space." And then he left. I closed the door and stood in the silence. The house felt heavier after he walked out, like his presence had briefly lifted something I hadn't realized was suffocating me. When I brought Adam lunch later, he didn't mention Tyler. Didn't say if it helped. Didn't thank me. That night, I sat alone in the living room with the lights off and wondered why a stranger's smile had felt more real than anything I'd shared with my husband in months. The next day, Tyler came back. And I opened the blinds. It's strange how fast it shifted. Not the affair. That came later. I mean the way Tyler's schedule became the only structure I looked forward to in my week. He came every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday around 9 a.m., and somewhere between week 1 and week 3, Those mornings became sacred in my head. I started wearing mascara again. Nothing dramatic, just enough to feel a little more like myself. I'd brush my hair, swap the baggy sweatshirt for something soft but flattering. Always barefoot, though. I didn't want to seem like I was trying too hard. But I was. The thing is, I wasn't trying to seduce him. Not really. I was just trying to remember what it felt like to be noticed. Adam didn't notice anymore. He couldn't. His world was pain and physical therapy and bedpans and rage that had nowhere to go. He snapped at me over nothing. A forgotten water bottle, a misbuttoned shirt, soup that was too hot. I knew it wasn't about me, but that didn't make the cut any less sharp. Tyler never said anything about it. Never commented when Adam barked at me from the bedroom while we stood in the kitchen. He just handed me coffee, or asked if I needed help carrying groceries in from the car. Once, he replaced a burnt-out light bulb without saying a word. It had been dead for 3 weeks. One morning, I offered him banana bread I'd made the night before, the first thing I'd baked in months. He took a bite and closed his eyes. "Jesus, you should open a bakery." I laughed. Not because I believed him, but because he said it like he meant it. Like I still had something to offer the world besides patience and clean towels. That morning, while Adam slept after a difficult session, Tyler and I sat on the back steps with coffee. The sun was just coming up over the trees. There was a chill in the air that made me tuck my legs up under me. He handed me his hoodie. I took it. We didn't touch. We didn't flirt. But we sat close enough for our shoulders to brush every time I laughed. And I laughed a lot. He told me stories about growing up in Bend, about the dog he lost last year, about how he used to volunteer with elderly patients and how most people were scared of death. But no one talked about the fear of uselessness. That word hit me hard. "That's what Adam's feeling," I said before I could stop myself. "He used to take care of everything, and now he can't even shower without help." Tyler looked at me gently. "That's hard. For both of you." I nodded. But it's harder being the one still expected to be whole. He didn't say anything to that, just looked at me like he heard more than I meant to say. That night, I found myself lying awake in bed, wondering if it would be wrong to dream about someone else. Not to touch him, not to love him, just to let him exist in the quiet place inside me that Adam no longer entered. I didn't have an answer. But I started opening the blinds before Tyler arrived, and I started closing them after he left. I want to say the first time was a mistake, that it was a moment of weakness, a lapse in judgment, something I didn't see coming. But the truth is, I knew. I knew the moment I put on perfume that morning, just a spritz, barely noticeable. I knew when I tucked my shirt in just so, when I reapplied lip balm 5 minutes before he arrived, even though I wasn't going anywhere. Adam was having a bad week. The pain in his legs was getting worse. His medication made him groggy and mean. He barely spoke unless it was to complain. And when he did speak, it was to say things like, "You didn't heat this long enough?" Or, "Stop hovering. You're making it worse." I had become part of the noise for him, a background object, a wall with a pulse. Tyler came in like always, polite, grounded, calm. He had this way of making the room feel less chaotic, like everything would be okay for at least the next hour. He spent most of the session coaching Adam through weight-bearing exercises. I stayed in the hallway, half listening, pretending to be busy with laundry I'd already folded twice. I heard Adam curse at one point. Heard Tyler calmly tell him, "Take a breath, man. It's just a moment." When they finished, Tyler came into the kitchen, sweaty, tired. He pulled a bottle of water from the fridge, sat on the stool near the island, and let out a sigh. "He's getting stronger," he said. I nodded. He'd never admit it. "He doesn't have to," Tyler said. "That's not for me." Then he looked at me, not in a way that demanded anything, just looked. I felt it before he moved. The silence got thicker, the space between us smaller. He stood up, walked to the other side of the counter where I stood rinsing a plate I didn't need to rinse. He reached out and touched my wrist. Light, deliberate. I froze. I shouldn't, he said quietly. You already are, I whispered. I turned toward him. Our faces were too close now. He leaned in slowly, giving me every chance to stop him. I didn't. When our lips met, I exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for a year. It was soft, careful, not hungry. He touched my face like I was something fragile, something he wasn't sure he was allowed to want. The sound of Adam shifting in the bedroom made us break apart. I stepped back. My heart slammed against my ribs, not from fear, from something else, something terrifying in a different way. I need to go, he said, backing away, eyes wide, breath unsteady. I nodded. Okay. But he didn't move. Not right away. I didn't plan that, he said. I know. He finally left, and the door shut behind him with a softness that felt like shame. I stood alone in the kitchen, the counter cool against my fingertips. My pulse was still racing. Adam called from the other room. Claire? I cleared my throat, stepped into the doorway. Yeah? Did the guy leave? I nodded. Yeah, he just did. Okay, he said, and that was it. I went to the sink, ran cold water over my hands, tried to focus on the chill, on the here and now. But all I could hear in my head was the way Tyler had said, I shouldn't. Because the truth is, I shouldn't have either. And I knew, as I dried my hands and walked down the hallway with a glass of water for my husband, that I would do it again. It didn't feel like a choice anymore. After that first kiss, there wasn't a grand conversation. No apologies, no decision made in the light of day to start something we couldn't take back. We just kept going. Quietly, slowly, like it had always been inevitable. The next time happened 2 days later, then again the following week. And after that, it stopped feeling like the next time. It was just part of the rhythm now. The hours Adam spent in bed recovering from therapy, and the minutes I spent in the kitchen pressed against Tyler's chest, breathing like I hadn't in months. We were careful. Not perfect, but careful. Tyler would wait for Adam to doze off before brushing against my hip as I poured him coffee. I would pretend to need something from the garage, and he'd follow. Our touches were fast, quiet, restrained by the fear of being caught and, worse, the guilt of knowing we deserved it. I told myself it didn't mean anything, that it was just escape, that I wasn't in love with him, that I still loved my husband, in the way you love someone whose suffering has swallowed them whole. But the more time I spent with Tyler, the more I realized that love without connection starts to rot. You still recognize the person. But the bond? It softens, sours, becomes something you feed out of habit, not hunger. Adam noticed the change. He never said it directly, but I saw it in his eyes. The way he studied me when I brought him food. The pauses after simple questions. The lingering glances when he thought I wasn't looking. Once, while I adjusted the pillows under his legs, he asked, "You wearing perfume?" I froze. "Just body spray." He stared at me. "You haven't worn anything in months." I shrugged. Felt like smelling like something today? He didn't respond, just looked past me like he was deciding how far he wanted to let that thought go. Tyler, to his credit, never tried to define what we were doing. He didn't press. He didn't ask for more. But there were moments, between kisses, during quiet laughs, when his hand would linger on mine longer than it needed to, when he'd look at me like he saw a life that could exist if things were different. And the terrifying part? I saw it too. One afternoon, after Adam had a particularly rough session, he threw his water bottle at the wall. It didn't break, just bounced and rolled under the table. I didn't flinch. just stared at it, then at him. "I hate this," he said through clenched teeth. "I know," I said. He looked at me, really looked. "You seem happy lately." I blinked. "What?" "You laugh. You hum when you make coffee. You wear that pink shirt again." I swallowed hard. "Is that bad?" He didn't answer, just turned his head toward the window. "I just wonder who gets the version of you I don't see anymore." I had to leave the room. I stood in the hallway, pressing my back to the wall, breathing through my nose until the heat in my chest settled. Tyler arrived 30 minutes later. I didn't touch him that day. Didn't even look at him for the first 10 minutes. But when he was done, when Adam was asleep and the house was quiet again, I followed him out to the porch. "Don't fall in love with me," I said. He didn't smile, just said, "You think I haven't already?" I said nothing, because the truth was I had no idea which one of them I was betraying more. It was a Thursday. Tyler wasn't scheduled to come that day, but I had texted him the night before asking if he could stop by, just to check on Adam's posture with the new brace. It wasn't urgent. I just wanted to see him. I told myself it was about Adam, but we both knew that wasn't true. We met in the grocery store parking lot instead. I said I needed a break, that I couldn't stand the silence in the house anymore, that I didn't want to talk. I just wanted to not feel like I was being swallowed whole. He said, "Okay." So we sat in his car under a shady tree near the back of the lot. I climbed into the passenger seat and pulled the door shut like I was hiding from something, or someone, or maybe just myself. We didn't speak much. He reached for my hand. I let him. I leaned my head against his shoulder and closed my eyes, just for a minute. His fingers traced lazy patterns on my wrist. It felt like peace. Then my phone rang. I ignored it the first time. The second time I looked, our neighbor's name. I picked up. "Claire? It's Maria. Adam fell. He was screaming. I went in through the side door. He's okay, but he hit his head. I called 911. I don't remember how I got out of the car. Just that I was suddenly outside, keys in hand, running across the lot like the ground might collapse if I stopped moving. I got home 5 minutes after the ambulance pulled up. He was on the stretcher, bruised, eyes glassy, blood on his temple. "Where were you?" he asked. Not loud, just direct. I started, but I couldn't finish it. Because what was I supposed to say? I was 5 blocks away in a parked car, curled up in the arms of the man paid to help you walk again? I was trying to feel whole while you fought to stand. The EMTs wheeled him out. I followed behind them in my car, hands shaking, guilt crawling up my spine like insects. At the ER, I had to lie about when I'd left the house. I said I'd been running errands. I said I'd only been gone an hour. I sat in the waiting room for 3 more, fingers laced, breath shallow. When they finally let me see him, Adam didn't speak. He just turned his head toward the window again, like he was looking for something out there that would explain why his wife couldn't stand to be near him anymore. Tyler texted once, "Is he okay?" I didn't answer. The next day, Adam asked for a different therapist, said he was more comfortable with someone new. I said I understood. I told him Tyler had a packed schedule anyway. We didn't say his name again, but he knew. I saw it in the way he looked at me now. Not like a partner, not even like a stranger. Like a man assessing damage, calculating what could be rebuilt and what should be burned. That night, while he slept, I opened the back door and stood in the cold. I listened to the trees sway and the distant hum of traffic. I thought about the look on his face when he asked, "Where were you?" I'd never felt more outside of myself. And yet, I couldn't cry. Because crying would mean I wanted forgiveness. And I didn't know if I deserved it. Tyler never came back after that day. No final message, no goodbye, no confrontation. He just disappeared from my phone like a season that ended early. Warm 1 minute, gone the next. I didn't try to chase him. I didn't even delete his contact. I just stopped looking. Adam didn't ask why he vanished. He never acknowledged the switch to the new therapist, a kind older woman who spoke softly and kept her eyes on her clipboard. He didn't fight the change. I think he welcomed it. He was walking again by then, slowly, with effort. He used the cane inside the house and avoided stairs, but he was recovering, getting stronger every day. And every day he spoke less to me. There was no big conversation, no late-night explosion. Just silence, thick and sharp, like glass in the air between us. We moved around each other like ghosts who once shared a life. I still cooked for him, still changed the sheets, still brought him water in the evenings, though he rarely drank it. We lived in the same space, but there was no warmth left, just routine. One afternoon, he stood by the doorway, cane in hand, jacket on, keys hooked to his finger. I looked up from the kitchen table, startled. "Where are you going?" I asked. He looked at me without blinking. "Out." "Out where?" He tilted his head. "Does it matter?" I didn't answer. He stared at me for a second longer, then turned and walked out the door. That was the first time he left the house without needing help. And I didn't follow. It wasn't anger. It wasn't revenge. It was worse. It was distance that had calcified into detachment. He no longer needed to explain himself to me. And I no longer had any right to ask. Later that week, he asked for space. "I think you should stay with your sister for a while," he said over dinner. The first full sentence he'd spoken to me in days. "I can go to a hotel," I replied quietly. He shrugged. "Whatever you want." So I packed a bag. Just one. He didn't watch me. Didn't come to the door. Didn't say goodbye. I stood there for a moment before leaving, trying to feel something. Anger, sadness, guilt, fear. But all I felt was empty. I stayed at a small extended stay place near the highway. The walls were thin. The shower pressure was awful. I sat at the tiny table at night with instant coffee and stared at the laminate counter, wondering how many other women had sat there trying to rewrite their lives in silence. I didn't call Tyler. I didn't call Adam either. I went back to the house once, 2 weeks later, to pick up some things. Adam wasn't there. The new therapist was pulling out of the driveway. She smiled politely, waved. I smiled back, then stepped into the place that used to be ours. Everything was clean, uncluttered. The house felt lighter without me in it. I walked into the kitchen. There was a new coffee mug on the counter, blue ceramic, unchipped. His. And on the windowsill above the sink, the blinds were open. I stood there for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I didn't knock on his door. Because whatever I was chasing when I let Tyler touch me, I hadn't found it. And whatever Adam had to forgive, he didn't owe me that. Now, when people ask if I'm married, I say, it's complicated. But the truth is simple. He left the house. And I couldn't follow. Not because I wasn't allowed, but because I'd already walked out long before he ever did.